Hello, my name's Fred McNeil, and you're watching QAC TV 7. The show you're watching is Papa's World. Now, Papa's World, we're referring to, of course, Papa Hemingway, and we talk books, we talk local authors, and not only are we encouraging you to support our local authors, read their books, buy their books, but daggone it, we're encouraging you to read. The lost art of reading, Robert, is worrying me a little bit. I'm delighted today I have a thriller writer, and we're going to meet a great character, not only the author, but the character of his book, Robert Bidinotto. Robert, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
I want the audience to know, we've tried this for about 2 weeks. February 2015 in the state of Maryland has been a disaster.
The snow has not cooperated.
So we've been snowed out, so you're going to warm things up today.
Let's do that.
Good. Robert, we always start out, before we talk about your delightful books, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was born in western Pennsylvania. Dying mill town. My parents were blue collar. They worked like dogs all their lives. They're very honest, honorable people. But we had no real culture in our home and in our community to speak of. The biggest club in my high school was the Future Farmers of America.
Okay.
On the radio, we had Johnny Cash and Patsy Cline in the farm reports.
It sounds like Queen Anne's County, so
well,
be careful.
I'm not casting any aspersions.
No.
I'm just saying that I'm
it was
kind
a rural, relaxed community.
Yes, it was. Yeah. And Newcastle, Pennsylvania was a mill town at the time when that was a big thing. And it later became the center of the Rust Belt. So I was a fish out of water. As a kid, I was interested in reading. I loved reading. I loved books. I think the thing that influenced me most...
Now, who did that come from? A grandmother or parents? Or you don't know?
I'm an argument against both biological and environmental determinism. I haven't a clue.
No idea.
No idea whatsoever.
Maybe the milkman. Who knows?
Who knows? Well, I don't know. Dad wouldn't have appreciated that. But at any rate, I did have some encouragement from some teachers, but the bug was in me when I was
this started early.
Young. I was, when I was really, really little, I was fascinated by stories.
Okay.
My mother would park me as a 3-year-old or whatever in front of this big, fat Philco television with a tiny black and white screen. And there I acquired a black and white worldview. My favorite shows were like Superman and the Lone Ranger. I really loved the Lone Ranger.
The heroes.
All the heroes. I liked the lone wolf hero, the Zorro type character, and that had an indelible impact on me. Later on, when I got into school, I would read comic books, and my favorite was Batman. I liked him because he didn't have superpowers, because he was an exceptional human being.
There's a little dark side to him, yes?
There was a dark side to him, but justice was his thing.
Right.
He was a justice character.
And that's your recurring theme, right?
It is a recurring theme through my later nonfiction career, when I later went off and started writing for a career. I got involved in nonfiction. I wrote magazine article. I started out with my local newspaper. I'd write letters to the editor.
And this is while you were in high school, or?
While I was in high school, I would write letters to the editor. Junior high school, I was always very opinionated. I read a lot of current events, and I always had very strong views on various issues. And so I would write letters to the editor. Later on, I became known to the local editor of the newspaper, the Newcastle News.
Here comes another letter from Robert.
Yeah, exactly. Len Kolosinski. Then editor of the Newcastle News. He would expect regular letters from me. They would generate controvery. So I already had the
topics of whatever.
You name it, political topics of the day. And then I got really interested as a kid, as sort of a kid's hobby, in the subject of UFOs.
Okay.
No longer an interest, no longer believe in any of that.
We're talking about growing up in the late 50s, 60s. Okay.
Yeah, and so during that period of time, I got interested in UFOs, and I taught myself how to research and how to organize. I never read any books about this, but I would put together notebooks about this subject. I'd have newspaper clippings all over the living room floor. I would be organizing, I'd be looking for patterns in the different UFO reports and cases, and I wrote these big notebooks, 3-ring binder notebooks, filled with cases and looking for
UFO sightings,
right,
reports.
and looking for patterns and things. And even though that is, I look back with a little chagrin and amusement, I really, at that time, I was learning to research. I was learning to organize my thoughts. I was learning to present them down on paper. And as a 17-year-old, the Newcastle News let me write 7 gigantic articles on that topic
On UFOs.
for the newspaper, the daily newspaper.
Now, this is early 60s, mid-60s, where are we?
Mid-60s.
Mid-60s.
I was a 17-year-old kid, and they took up almost an entire page of the newspaper.
On your article on UFOs.
Each article, the 7, and they ran daily. And I was very proud of that. That was sort of like the first big published thing
Well, now, what did
for a
Mom and Dad
17-year-old.
think about this?
Well, they were very proud. I
Impressed.
won some essay contests and things.
Okay.
But this is all, most of my interest, however, it shifted away from that kind of thing into political and current events
This is the
topics.
Vietnam War era. This is all types of upheaval, yes.
Yeah, and at that point, I became, the justice theme was there from the very beginning. I understood that there was good and evil in the world. I could not understand evil for the life of me. I didn't understand what motivated malice. So later on, it became, later on I was writing for Reader's Digest. I was writing crime pieces, true crime things for Reader's Digest. It was the same issues, the justice system,
So
the
in your
justice
nonfiction
issues.
world, this reoccurring theme
it's a
of
recurring theme.
the Robert Justice League, basically, is what it is, right?
Justice League of America
Which is impressive, because, I mean...
is me. Yeah, I was, and all of the little magazines I would write for, as well as the bigger magazines, that was the theme. That was the recurring issue.
Was there any formal training after high school, or is this just all self-taught from starting with the UFOs?
No, I went on to Grove City College and majored in economics.
All right.
I decided after 3 years that I didn't want to do economics, and I left the school. I went off to seek my fortune.
Okay.
And I wanted to write. Kids in high school knew Robert wants to be a writer. So
well, you've obviously created a nice local reputation with these wonderful stories, right, in the paper.
Well, yes, but it doesn't really translate into
money,
into a career.
No.
So I went off. I bummed around. Was in Philadelphia area for about 6 months after college, and then I went off to Boston. I was
trying to be a freelance writer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Later on, I started writing for the Boston Herald. I wrote op-eds. I wrote book and film reviews.
So was the Herald the tabloid? Boston.
Yeah, at the time, it was.
Okay.
The Herald was the local tabloid newspaper, and it was the competition to the Boston Globe.
Right, the Globe was the morning paper. I think the Herald was the afternoon.
Yes.
I think I'm correct.
Yes.
My uncle
was the
Chris
Boston,
read your articles.
Okay, it was the Boston Herald American back in those days.
Right.
And I wrote, there again, I wrote a letter to the editor the book editor. And I told him that I disagreed with one of his book reviews. But it was such a literate letter to the editor that I get this phone call. And it's Al Duhamel, the book editor. Okay. And he says, asked me some things about my background. He says, "Are you interested in reviewing books?" I said, well, sure. So he started sending me books. Mostly I wanted thrillers, because by that time I'd migrated to reading thrillers. Alistair MacLean, The Guns of Navarone, Ice Station Zebra, Where Eagles Dare, all those things.
Gregory Peck and The Guns of Navarone is still one of my favorite
movies.
Phenomenal movie.
Sorry. The movie was great. The book is even better. He was the great granddaddy of a lot of contemporary fiction thriller writers.
Now, to get this job was having the relatives in
Boston. Mid to late 20s.
You're a young guy. Okay.
Yeah.
The Globe would come in the morning, and the working class Irish family would kind of laugh at it. The Herald in the afternoon with a great back sports page, if I remember right.
Yeah, they did.
That was a working man's paper.
It was the working man's paper.
Okay, so you're writing for them
in the
20s.
I was writing for them, doing some op-eds in it, but I was writing for a lot of different publications.
To make a buck,
everything. There were periods of time where writing for a lot of little magazines, I was getting paid by the word, and so I just had to crank out lots and lots of words. When you get a nickel a word or 10 cents a word,
they become lengthy articles, don't they?
The padding is incredible. But then later on, I had a break around 1980. '86, I ran into an
Oh, so
editor.
you did this all the way from the
Yeah.
late 60s to the
Well,
early
I was doing
80s?
all kinds of other jobs
Okay.
at the time, trying to make ends meet. When I first got up to Boston, I was a security guard.
Were you really? Okay.
I spent
Where
years.
were you living in Boston? You were Southie or
Oh
anywhere?
gosh, I was all over.
Everywhere.
I lived in right next door to the State House,
Okay.
21 Beacon
Beacon,
Street.
yeah.
Yeah, I used to say within spitting distance of the State House.
all right.
I lived in Back Bay around Symphony Road, right
Okay.
around from the Symphony Hall. I lived up in Lynn, Swampscott. I lived in
Wherever the
Somerville.
rent was inexpensive, you probably found the place.
Pretty much.
Yes,
My
that's-
first landing place was in Somerville,
Okay.
just across the Cambridge line,
Sure.
up from Inman Square, and I was within walking distance of Harvard Yard. So I'd go to see movies and so on, and I got connected with some friends who were really
And what
interested in
a
films
Harvard
and
Square
movies.
in
Yeah.
that era was great. My relatives,
crazy.
Yeah, oh, great.
It was nuts. It was crazy, but they would do all these old film
minute.
retrospectives, and I loved old
Okay.
movies. I loved the Katharine Hepburn, Tracy
Sure.
films, and so on. So anyway, while I'm trying to settle on exactly what it is I'm going to do, finally I got a break in the mid to late '80s with Reader's Digest. I met an editor at a party, and we hit it off pretty well. He asked to see some of my older articles that I'd written for little magazines and newsletters and so on. And we hit upon a subject that had a Boston area
Kind
topic,
of theme. Okay.
but it was a justice story.
Okay.
It was
You want to stay true to that?
it was about a man who ran a one-man radio station from a basement. So we're
in the Cambridge. Oh, in
this was
Boston.
in Gloucester, Massachusetts.
okay.
He played classical music. All he did was play classical music.
Out
He
of
did
the
not
basement
have
of
any.
his house.
He had a license, and he had, I think it was a very small wattage station.
Mm-hmm.
The locals loved him. He had his name was Simon Geller. The late
This is
Simon.
an AM or FM?
AM.
AM.
And he would play nonstop classical music, full operas, everything. And the great thing about Simon was he was a character. He had, in this one-man radio station, he would, out of his basement apartment, he would stop in the middle of talking, and he sounded like Elmer Fudd with a mouthful of marbles. He'd go, "This is
Boston
This is WVCA, the voice of Cape Ann," and he'd talk like it. And Simon, and then he would stop in the middle of an opera and say, "I'm sorry, I'll be back in 5 minutes. The peas are burning." He was great. So anyway, I wrote this story about him. He was challenged for his license, and it was like the
They tried to
big
take him off the air.
big corporation versus the little guy,
Oh, really?
and it was right up my alley.
Sure.
And this big corporation wanted to play top 40, and the locals weren't having it.
The battle was actually of the frequency or just his
It was
licensing?
over program content.
Oh, content.
Because Simon fell afoul of the FCC regulations, which said that you had to have a certain amount of public interest programming.
All right.
And he didn't.
Shows like this. Yeah,
It was just whatever the public was interested in, and they
put
happened
on.
to be interested in opera and classical music, but that wasn't the public interest as
Right.
defined by the regulations. So the FCC regulators were forced to step in when his license was challenged. It wound up to be a big deal.
Oh, this would have been great, yeah.
They had a
How old was this guy?
oh, he
You know,
was-
our age now? or
yeah,
younger?
yeah.
Okay.
He
So
was in
he's
his late
60s, yeah.
60s. He had
This is his life.
diabetes.
This is his whole
He had
life.
diabetes, and this was his life.
Yeah.
So anyway, Simon won, and I wrote the story. It was called "The Invincible Voice of
He
Cape
actually
Ann."
won the case.
He
the
won the
right
case.
to stay on the air.
They had a local citizens organization arise behind him and everything. It was great.
Oh, I guess that.
So anyway, I wrote for Reader's Digest through the mid-'90s, and then the complexion of the magazine changed dramatically. And we wound up, my editor and a number of the other editors I worked with left. They no longer did investigative stuff, true crime things, and the sort of things that I was interested in doing. And so I worked for nonprofits for a while. I worked
Doing PR work and stuff like that.
all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I was doing speaking, writing, putting on conferences, all kinds of
You're
things.
paying the bills.
Yeah.
You're paying the bills.
But there were nonprofits that had
Yeah.
causes
Good
that I
causes.
believed in.
It
Yeah,
fits
things I
in with
believed
your
in.
Justice League stuff, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And then what happened, to just fast forwarding to how
Sure,
I get into
sure.
fiction writing, I'd always had on the top of my bucket list write a novel.
You want to write a book.
I want to write a novel. I'd written nonfiction books.
Okay.
I'd written 2 books on crime.
Okay.
John Walsh of America's Most Wanted wrote the introduction to one of them.
Hey, really? Okay.
And
so you were already a published author.
published author and
Nonfiction?
plus nonfiction, always nonfiction. But I always wanted. I thought if I go to my grave without trying to write a novel, I'm going to hate myself.
Okay.
So when I lost a job as a magazine editor around 2008.
Now, where are you? Are you still in New England?
No,
or are you back
down here now.
Now you're here.
Now I'm in the Queen Anne's County,
Okay.
where I'd met my wife, Cindy Slate, who is the director of music at the Kent Island United Methodist Church, and she's also the accompanist for the Queen Anne's
So
Chorale.
our basement broadcast helped change your life in a couple ways, right?
Right.
Reader's Digest and probably led to the marriage altar.
Yeah, well, she and I met. It's a long story, not worth going into right now, but we met and we've been together. We've celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary
Good.
and exchanged our vows on a cruise this past January.
Well, congratulations.
Again,
Good
renewed
for
our
you.
vows.
10 years.
So
you got this burning desire.
I got this desire, and the nonprofit I was working for did the great favor for me of deciding they wanted to go in another direction.
Sure.
So we had a kind of a falling out, parting of ways, and I left, and now we're in the middle of the recession.
Okay, so you got the recession, you're trying to pay some bills. What do we do?
My wife's work had also gone from full-time to part-time, and there were other challenges. And I said, I don't know how in the world we're going to manage if I don't do something extraordinary.
Now.
So I, with her blessing, I decided to take off a year and write a novel. That novel turned out to be Hunter.
This is the first thriller of our series, right?
First of the series.
Right.
Introduces this character, Dylan
Now,
Hunter.
let's get into, but you basically created a space in your house and said,
I had a
routine
working office
Okay, all right.
that I'd always used for writing and working. But I had this character percolating around in my head since 2004.
So Dylan Hunter had been alive before the movie
Oh, yeah,
started.
yeah.
Okay.
I had the character idea since 2004,
right.
but I had not, and I'd written a bunch of notes, but I would go for a few weeks working on it, and then I would get distracted by other things in life. So what happened was I took out that year, wrote this book, self-published it. I said I'm going to finish this book by my next birthday. It was my 62nd birthday, which was June 5th, 2011. At 11 p.m. on June 4th, 2011.
You got it done.
The last pages were coming out of the printer.
Oh, very good.
17 days later, the book was on sale. I had a bunch of friends as beta readers who were waiting for the manuscript. They went over it like hordes of locusts, found the errors, fixed things up, and I got it published. It wound up selling about 4,000 copies over the next 5 months. Then the Amazon editors did a great favor to me. They named it an
book of the week, or what did they call it?
They named it an editor's pick.
Editor's pick.
They put it into a promotion in late November, early December of 2011, and the book went on to sell.
You just took off.
50,000 copies in the next 35 days.
35 days. You'd sold 4,000 prior to that, roughly.
And then all of a sudden it went supernova.
Well, who in the heck is this Hunter? Go ahead.
Dylan Hunter is a mysterious journalist. People who check his background find out it only goes back about 3 years on the internet, and they can't find anything about him. And part of the mystery of the first book is, who is this guy really? In the story, Dylan is writing about the criminal justice system, which is something I knew about.
He's a journalist like yourself, okay.
And he is trying to figure out, or he is writing stories about people who have been released prematurely from prison or not sentenced in the first place. Very, very bad people. And all of a sudden, after he writes these articles, these people wind up dead.
So there's some justice taking place, we're just not sure how.
And we don't know how.
Okay.
But these people are winding up shot, and their bodies are displayed and posed in meaningful ways, usually on the doorstep of the people who let them go, and usually with a copy of one of Dylan Hunter's articles right there at the crime scene.
Okay.
So,
there's all type of messages going on. Crime doesn't pay, somebody goofed in the justice system, and by the way, here's some facts.
So the police approach Dylan and says, "What's going on here?" And he's shocked, expresses shock to them, and he's laughing, saying, "Are you kidding me? Somebody's taking my articles and doing this sort of thing?" And so, based on the complexity of the crime scenes, the police are convinced that there must be a whole team of vigilantes, and that they may be former police or special ops people or so on. Meanwhile, Dylan has met a woman.
And this is the infamous and lovely Annie. Am I correct?
Annie Woods.
And I'll be quiet. This is all taking place right across the Bay Bridge in Washington, D.C., correct? Okay.
It takes place around here.
Okay.
There is there is a home that is suspiciously like the one that we have, and right here in the Graysonville area. Okay. There is a Bay Bridge Airport plays roles in the books. Okay. There's a lot of things going on here in Queen Anne's County. Okay. There's a lot of things going on. There are trips across the Bay Bridge and so forth.
So it's local. It
is local.
My wife says Annie is a character women will like. First of all, Dylan is not running around like James Bond and sleeping with everybody.
That's right.
And Annie has a quality. Please.
Well, Annie has her own heroic quality. Annie is a CIA officer. Okay. She is a security officer there. And they meet through circumstances that you have to read about in the book. It's a complicated situation and setup, but there's a spy element in the story, there's this criminal justice element in the story, and there's this grand romance going on. And the thing that I have been upset about in previous thriller authors is that how they treat women. And they treat women as either dispensable, like as you said, the James Bond girl who is a weekend fling, or a night's fling, or they are murdered on page 100.
That's right.
They are killed off so that the hero is propelled
broken-hearted again. Yes.
He's not only broken-hearted, he's propelled into revenge against the bad guys. And those two cliches I wanted to avoid.
Good.
So you have, as you do in the Robert B. Parker Spencer stories, an ongoing romance between these
are two people who love each other, have professions,
madly in love with each other.
With some hidden agendas.
With hidden agendas that they are the last two people, in Hunter, they are the last two people on the planet who should meet and fall in love.
Okay. But it happens.
But it happens.
Like all love happens.
They don't, if you know the Thomas Crown Affair, the movie The Thomas Crown Affair, cat and mouse game between a man and a woman. This is a similar kind of a setup in that there's a cat and mouse game, but the cat does not know she's the cat, and the mouse does not know he's the mouse, unlike the Thomas Crown Affair. So there's that element, plus this wider plot going on.
Bigger theme going on with this Justice League, I call it.
The readers have been very kind to the book. It has sold close to 100,000 copies now. And it's the thriller series continues in Bad Deeds, which is the second in the series. It takes place in a completely different setting. But Dylan in that book is trying to get away from the vigilante past and so forth and move on. And he and Annie are trying to also repair the damage from they were at the hands of a sociopath in the first book.
Yes.
A terrible villain. And so they're trying to essentially repair the wounds from all of that. And of course, he gets sucked right back into things. Always, it has to. But
evil continues, justice has to continue. Right?
Readers have been very, very kind to both books. They've both gotten terrific reviews and lots of sales. And I plan to continue this now for indefinitely.
Now, Robert, before we let you read a passage from one of the books or both, whatever you like, tell the audience. I have a feeling a lot of people are going, "Hey, wow, this is taking place here. There's a little romance. There's old-time justice, and there's the evil. There's everything." How do they get the book, or where can they get it?
Okay, they can. My books right now, both in print and as ebooks, are available at Amazon.com.
Okay, so they can just go to Amazon.com to tell you your name in or the title, whatever.
The title, Hunter. If they go to Amazon.com and type in Hunter for the search and my last name if they wish, they're going to be able to find the book
And
pretty
say
easily.
give them again your name, Robert.
Last name is Bidinotto. It's
Okay.
Bidinotto.
So Amazon.com will recognize that. Boom.
Right,
Take it
and they
right
can
there.
also go to my website, which is bidinotto.com.
And by the way, your blog. Tell them about your blog. Now,
That's
I left your blog about an hour ago, and I almost was late to this. Tell me about it. You have a delightful blog.
I have tons of thriller author interviews nested there. If you want to read interviews I've conducted with Lee Child, Brad Thor, the late Vince Flynn, and a whole host of others, I have those there.
Information about you,
Information about me,
about the
about my
books.
books, and I have a grand time with the blog, and a lot of people
It's a
follow
job
it. There's
well done.
people who want to learn about publishing, self-publishing. There's a lot
And
of
you're
material
willing to
there
help
on
them
that.
out.
Yes.
And you say on that blog several times, if you have questions as a reader,
Sure.
contact, and you encourage that.
Sure. And they can reach me directly at roberttherewriter@gmail.com.
Okay,
Which
say
is
it-
couldn't
say
be
it,
simple.
yeah.
roberttherewriter@gmail.com.
Okay.
It's that simple.
I mean, I think we could probably do 6 programs on your life, okay, and probably another 6 programs on the 2 books. Let's do this. Let's let you read a little bit from one of the books to tantalize them a little more, all right?
Okay.
Then we're going to go back and give them all those addresses again because it's important. Remember, folks, what we're trying to do is promote local authors, and here you have not only an author that's local, but a very interesting list of characters that are also local, which makes this fun, okay? How about, Robert, let's pick a selection and read it, all right?
Mr. Hunter? He glanced up from the papers on his desk. Come on in, Detective Cronin. He motioned to the guest chair. Cronin smiled and was just settling in when Hunter spoke first. You're concerned about something, Detective. It took him off guard, as intended. But Cronin was good. He took his time making himself comfortable, all the while looking at him steadily. I am. Hunter nodded and waited him out. Cronin gave it up. So let me get to the point. I've been checking into your background, Mr. He paused a second just to lay emphasis on the next word. Hunter. And I'm having a bit of trouble. He smiled at the cop. I'm not surprised. Cronin didn't expect that either. No? First, may I ask what prompted you to want to check into my background? Cronin hesitated, obviously weighing his words. Then he said, You've managed to get under the skin of a lot of important people. You don't say. And they want to know why you're doing this stuff. I've been asked to find out more about you. Asked? That made the cop smile a little. Against his will, he could tell. Okay, not exactly asked. I appreciate the position you're in, Detective Cronin, so let me guess. You want to know why all the information about Dylan Lee Hunter only goes back a couple of years and then dead ends. Cronin stared at him, again thrown off balance. Good. Well, it does arouse my curiosity. I changed my name, quite legally, I might add. From what? Hunter held his eyes. From a name that only I need to know. Maybe I do too. Not unless I'm the suspect in some kind of criminal investigation. Maybe you are. He leaned back and laughed. No, I'm not. You're fishing, Detective. I know you have your orders, but that's all this is, a fishing expedition. You said it yourself. I've gotten a lot of very important people's panties in a bunch, and now they're looking to get something on me, to shut me up.
Good stuff. And let me just steal the book for a second. We want to make sure everybody, you want to meet a modern local superhero who doesn't have magic powers, but thinks a lot, acts a lot, and knows the
He's
local
a
community.
thinking man's thriller hero.
And it is a thriller. It's called Hunter by Robert Bidinotto. Now, Robert, let's take a couple seconds here. Let's go over the full range. If I want to buy the book, I do what?
Go to Amazon.com, type in Hunter, and perhaps my last name, Bidinotto, and you will find it. But Hunter should be sufficient to get it. It's available as an audiobook, as an ebook, and as a print book. Bad Deeds, the sequel, is available only as an ebook and a print book right now.
Okay, so we can get those fairly easy. If they want to contact you, because you encourage writers and readers, tell the people how to do that.
They can do that by just writing me at Robert the Writer. Just run all those words together. Robert the Writer at gmail.com. The letter G and mail.com.
Okay, Robert, I think what we're going to have to do before I let you go today, we're going to reschedule another program. Besides your personal life, which is interesting, I want to know more about these Boston stories. But I think, again, the most of me, besides Dylan Hunter being interesting, just the idea of Annie and the woman's role in the book is a little different than traditionally done in the James Bond and the thriller type stories, right?
She's quite a character, and she actually saves the day in the second book.
Well, because I think a lot of times women say to me, Fred, well, all that thriller stuff is great, but the woman's role is always secondary. This is a book where, no, it's not. She's a partner.
She is.
And they're going to make it
very
interesting.
Much so. Very
Robert,
much so.
I really appreciate it. We
Thank
always
you so much.
End the show with a poem, so let's end it this way. But I do promise the audience, we'll get Robert back, all right? We're going to go to A.E. Housman today, one of my favorite poets. And as I get older, I appreciate this a little more. It's called When I Was 1 and 20. When I was 1 and 20, I heard a wise man say, give crowns and pounds and guineas, but not your heart away. Give pearls away and rubies, but keep your fancy free. But I was 1 and 20. No use to talk to me. When I was 1 and 20, I heard him say again, the heart out of the bosom was given in vain, was never given in vain. 'Tis paid with sighs aplenty and sold for endless rue. And I am 2 and 20, and oh, 'tis true, 'tis true. Okay, A.E. Housman reminding us we don't know everything at 21. We certainly don't know it at 67. Robert, again, I appreciate it.
Thank
You've
you
been
so
watching
much, Fred.
QAC TV 7. I'm Fred McNeil. You've been watching Papa's World. Please get yourself a copy of Hunter and the book that follows it. And please read to your children. I'm Fred McNeil, thanking you for your time. My time is up, and we'll see you next time.